Good morning and welcome to Crucial Conversations for Conflict Resolution. This is the June 1st Friday event. For any of you that may be new, MRS hosts First Friday events every first Friday, and we rotate around the state, each district offering something new and exciting for job seekers. And this month, we have our friends from Disability Rights of Michigan. And we are going to talk about some of those tough conversations that we have when we're trying to re-enter the workforce or once we are in the workforce. We all know that sometimes conflict and resolving conflict can be difficult, but our hope is to arm you with information today so that when you are having those difficult conversations, you have an easier strategy for how to best approach those conversations, things that you can say, and just additional tools to add to your toolbox as you have those conversations with others in the workforce. A little housekeeping, you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, you have a Q&A button. If you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please include those in that Q&A, and we will respond to questions and comments at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I am going to let Disability Rights of Michigan take it over from here. Elham?
Thank you, Crystal. Good morning, everybody. My name is Elham Jashan. I am the Director of Employment Advocacy Team working with Disability Rights Michigan. I have with me two of my staff. I have Liz Schall and Chelsea Chamberlain. They will presenting for you about Disability Rights Michigan programs and services that you will benefit from having all this information and resources. They also will discuss with you about conflict resolution, dispute resolution options, and self-advocacy strategies. And I will let them start their presentation. Chelsea?
Sorry, I was muted. Good morning, everybody. So I will introduce you to Disability Rights Michigan and our mission. So our mission is to protect the legal rights of individuals with disabilities. So who we are, Disability Rights Michigan is the federally designated protection and advocacy agency serving the state of Michigan. There are a total of 57 protection and advocacy agencies, one serving each state and U.S. territory. And Disability Rights Michigan is funded by 9 federal programs, the state and some private donors. As I mentioned, we serve the whole state of Michigan. We have one office in Lansing and one in Marquette. And we receive over 4,000 calls per year regarding disability rights. So our focus areas, we seek to end abuse and neglect of people with disabilities. We advocate for community supports, so reducing institutionalization for people with disabilities as much as possible. We advocate for access to education for children with disabilities. We advocate for competitive integrated employment, which is part of what CAP does, which Liz will talk more about that, as CAP is part of our team as the employment team. Our agency protects individual rights for people with disabilities. We have advocates and attorneys who can assist with different individual rights. And we protect the rights of individuals with disabilities who receive Social Security benefits. And we advocate for voter rights, so making sure that polling locations are accessible and that the whole voting process is accessible for individuals with disabilities. We also advocate for access to vaccines and medical care. We have vaccine clinics all throughout the state with our vaccine team. Thanks. And now I'll pass it over to Liz to talk about Crucial Conversation.
Good morning. As Crystal mentioned, we're going to talk about crucial conversations for conflict resolution today. So what happens when there's a problem? When you're receiving services from or working with agencies or returning to the workforce, conflict can arise. And it's important to have strategies and to understand how to resolve these types of conflicts. So there's different styles of conflict and the way that people approach conflict. One of those styles is competing. So having a competitive nature around the conflict, where an individual is seeking to win their side of the conflict. Another type of conflict style is avoiding. Often, sometimes an individual will delay the other person, or they'll shut them out, they'll withdraw, they'll discount the other person's side when they're trying to navigate the conflict. Accommodating, the other individual feels that they have a high sense of importance over the other's needs. Compromising, one of the parties who is compromising, or a third party that will help to work, create, and find a solution for both parties. And collaborating style involves a third party who has a high regard for the needs of both parties. And as client assistance program advocates, we utilize a lot of compromising and collaboration in the process that we go through. Conflict resolution. It's important to go through this process and find a way to a solution to the problem. In conflict situations, it's important to identify and understand people's perspectives. For some individuals may come into a situation with trauma or cultural difference, different communication styles, or different accommodation needs. And it's important to acknowledge all of this in the process. When we talk about conflict in the work that we do, specifically with MRS, we have a bunch of strategies that we like to access, and we encourage individuals to self-advocate. And starting, if there is conflict, we really like to encourage the customer to reach out to the MRS management. And if they aren't able to resolve their differences with management, they can also seek out the client assistance program, which we are the client assistance program. And we're available to navigate the conflict resolution process and help provide support to individuals and to MRS counselors. What is the client assistance program? So the client assistance program is one of Disability Rights Michigan's federally funded programs. It's designed to assist individuals with disabilities in understanding and using rehabilitation and independent living services. CAP was established under the Federal Rehabilitation Act of 1973 as amended by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, of 2014. CAP advocates can help When you have questions regarding services available from vocational rehabilitation or independent living programs, when you have been determined ineligible for services, or if you disagree about that decision, and when you're experiencing delays in receiving services. What you can expect from a CAP advocate. We provide support in negotiating services, resolving communication challenges, helping reach a compromise, attending meetings, empowering self-advocacy, finding other resources, and representing you at an appeal or hearing in some cases. Ilham had mentioned this, your dispute resolution options. Sometimes when a conflict escalates and a resolve is not able to be made at a lower level, there may be need for higher level of intervention, and these are the options that are available. You may request an informal review by contacting your local VR director. Any VR staff at your local office can help with information on how to contact the area director. You may request mediation by contacting the VR state director, and you may request an administrative hearing by contacting the state VR director. I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea, and she's going to talk about some appropriate advocacy strategies.
So yes, what are some appropriate self-advocacy strategies? Number one, be involved in every step. You're going to play a vital role in your employment plan. Remember, this is your employment goal, and you get to be the driver. You collaborate with your counselor, but be involved, ask questions. Understand your needs and your responsibilities. Nobody knows your needs better than you. And sometimes it's going to be trial and error, because you're going to embark on a journey that you may never have been on before. And so it's going to be a constant learning as you go along. You learn your needs, understand them, and communicate those with your counselor, and understand your responsibilities. Make sure that when you meet with your counselor, you ask questions if you're unclear on what your responsibilities are. Some of the responsibilities I can think of right now would be, if you're getting support for college training, make sure you're providing your FAFSA and your transcripts and things like that. Whatever documentation, medical documentation, to help MRS understand your disability. And then just making sure that you are clear on the expectations that MRS has of you in the process, and that you have of your counselor as well, and just make sure you guys are on the same page. Another tip is to follow up on conversations with written communication. So if you meet with your counselor, you can just send an email and say, hey, we talked about this, this, and this. My understanding is I need to do X, Y, or Z, and you will follow up with ABC, just to make sure you document and just get confirmation that you have a clear understanding on what the expectations for both parties are. Next, know your rights. VR is a program that is designed to help individuals with disabilities to obtain or maintain or advance in employment. So make sure you know what your rights are to the services, your rights to, access services that are in your individualized plan for for employment, the IPE, and your rights to request a review or appeal a decision that MRS has made. Make sure you understand those rights. Also keep records of, things like eligibility determinations or records of things that you've provided to MRS, whether it's doctor's records or certainly the individualized plan for employment. It's good to have that on hand so you can look back at it for your reference. Also know that you can update your IPE at any time. So as you go along in your employment plan, as your, if your needs change, whether it's based on your disability or based on your employment goal, you can always revisit that IPE. So it's always good to keep records of things like that so that you can have it for your reference. Also get information and decisions in writing. It's always helpful for your reference. And it's also helpful in the dispute resolution process to have things in writing so that, the parties can have the information in front of them. It's the same thing. And it helps people get on the same page. So it doesn't become a he said, she said hamster wheel conversation. Finally, at any time from application through eligibility through case closure, you have the right to contact the Client Assistance Program at any time if you feel like you need support in some way in resolving a dispute between you and MRS. And so I'll talk a little bit about some success stories for self-advocacy. I mentioned before about knowing your needs, and I'm going to talk about a case where we have a medical student that, her employment goal is to be a doctor, and she has gone through the medical school program. One of the things with higher education, particular something as intensive as medical school, to become a doctor takes a lot of different steps, which MRS themselves is not likely to know every step of the process. So this individual was able to know her needs, right? She needed the support for, med school. And after that, someone should go through, someone needs to go through securing a residency for a few years after completing med school. And that's a very intensive process. There's, a portal that you have to upload your transcripts and you have to take a series of exams. And there's just it's a very complex system to go through to become a doctor. So her knowledge of her need for that particular goal, although not easy, she's been able to secure services because she was able to share what was needed, as far as support for the application process. It's a very expensive endeavor, even just to apply for residency. So she was able to do that. And so, nobody is an expert in what you do more than you. So, that's a way that she was able to get some successful outcome working with MRS to be able to secure assistance with the residency applications. Another situation that sometimes comes up is not understanding like policy. So we had a customer who went through a training program, and the training program kind of advertised as being a program that implemented universal design. And universal design can kind of mean different things to different people. So it was really unclear. The individual wanted certain specific accommodations with regard to being able to record lectures and take pictures of notes or have copies of teachers' notes. And, they insisted, okay, we are universal design. So in working with him, we actually were able to get to the program to put kind of specific information about what universal design meant as they implemented it, so that it was more clear as to what the accommodations were. And then another situation we had is an individual whose native language was not English, but she was very well educated, but she had a psychological evaluation that didn't show a favorable, it didn't show favorable information to support MRS supporting her in post-secondary education, actually grad school. But in looking further, we discovered that this customer had graduated magna cum laude in her undergrad without, at that point, she was not getting assistance from MRS. So we were able to advocate for her to, have, in this case, there was no need for a psychological evaluation, but, the other conversation was being able to advocate for somebody that, somebody to be able to have access if they needed to do a psychological evaluation. They should maybe use somebody that shares the same native language as the individual, because that would yield more accurate results. So being able to advocate, if you have a situation like that, you have the right to choose your providers. And if you go through a service and the vendor is maybe not an appropriate fit based on whether it's your disability or something like a second English being a second language, and or a cultural thing, there's great result in being able to choose your own provider. And so those are just some examples of how individuals have been able to successfully self-advocate and move closer to their employment goals. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, Chelsea. So Chelsea and Liz and Ilham, we do have a few questions. And keep in mind, participants, you can still enter questions in the Q&A if you have them, if any of these questions jog your memory about something. So our first question is, if I have a problem with a supervisor at my job, what should I do since they are in charge?
All right, I can answer this question. Will be, if this is in general, if you have, if this is a person that have a problem with the supervisor, we always say the communication is the key for everything. First step is to go and talk to your supervisor and try to find out what's going on with this. Maybe sometimes it's misunderstanding. That's happened a lot. In case it did not work out, you can go and talk to your supervisor, manager, and try to solve the issue at this point. I'm talking in general. I'm not talking about, VR staff. I'm talking in general. So, and HR need to be involved with this. So this is always my tip for people. They have an issue with the supervisor, is to talk with the supervisor first, try to see how you can solve this issue. And if you felt like there's nothing there you can contribute or you can work it out, So go up and talk to HR or to the manager and go from there. I don't know if any of the staff need to add anything about this question.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums up what I would say too.
Thank you. Next question is, what is the best way to deal with a coworker that you don't like but you have to work closely with?
So I will let my staff talking about this one.
I can talk about it. So, again, communication is the key. You know, it's always good to start with that person. You know, if there's concerns, it's always good to let calm heads prevail. So probably don't approach it when you're really emotionally charged. Give yourself some time to identify what the problem is, and so that you can prepare to share that with your colleague. And if that's unsuccessful, you know, you can talk to your manager or HR, and, you know, maybe have a facilitated discussion to try to resolve the issue.
I can add, sometimes you have a great relationship with your coworker and you feel you can befriend more than coworkers. You can, talk to each other. But if you feel like this is just a business, I cannot be friends with this person, please try your best to be very limited in a way for limited in a way of communication. You don't need to be more involved in your personal life or in your activity outside of job. So try to make sure that your communication with this person, it's about your job, about what's going on. And again, if you have any other issue regarding this duties or work, you always can go and talk to your supervisor.
Thank you. The next question is, how should I handle someone yelling at me at work?
You mean as a coworker or as a client? It's different.
It doesn't say. I think there's
Okay.
means like at their job or.
Okay, so it happened to me. And it happened to me when client usually yelled and screamed and swear. I remember when I start working as a CAB or advocate, when somebody screamed and yelled at me, I was like, my first reaction is to yell back. But after you learn more, after experience, after getting more mature, you never do that at all. If you're the professional, you listen and you can just let this client vent and say what they need to say. And then you can say, I will call you back when you come down and we'll discuss what's going on. If client or the customer that you work with starts swearing at you, then you need to be very firm. Like I would not allow this language to be between us. I cannot continue talking to you at this moment. Please come down, and when you come down, you can call me back. I need to hang up right away. So that's my approach for my customer when they when they happen. I never have an experienced coworker screaming at me, so I don't know. But in case that's happened, usually I know right now after my experience, I will never scream back. I will say, I think you're upset at this point. When you come down, we'll talk about it. Never scream back, because this will not help the situation at all.
Just escalate.
Yes.
We also have a participant in follow-up to this comment that stated, one must remember emotional intelligence on your end. So someone else just wanted to add that that's an important piece when dealing with someone that's yelling.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Let's see, we have, I believe, 2 more questions. The next one is, can you help if I feel like I'm being cheated out of money that is due to me from my paycheck?
You always can call our agency about this. This is, you know, as you know, Disability Rights Michigan is dealing with all kind of services. However, if you're as a person with a disability and that's happened to you, you can call our agency about this. If you're a person that you been dealing, I think you know, Liz, I think you know, because you were INR. So what kind of agency they can refund to?
The wage and hour.
Yeah,
Wage and hour on the Department of Wage and Hour at the state of Michigan.
Okay, and last question is, maybe it's a comment or a 2-parter. I can't work all of the hours that my job is assigning due to my disability and told my supervisor this. How do I tell them in a way that does not get me in trouble? Or should I report this to HR?
all right. I will let one of my advocate to discuss this because this kind of cases happened a lot with them. So Liz or Chelsea, you can answer this question.
Do you want me to take it, Chelsea?
Sure.
Okay. So requesting accommodations are really important. You may need to request an accommodation if you're not able to work those hours based on your disability. Remember that accommodations is an interactive process. It's not just yes and no. There is a website called the Job Accommodation Network. Their web address is askjan.org. And there's all types of accommodation requests and the process and how to work with your employer, how to address accommodations that you need. If it's that you're being scheduled more than that's a totally different situation. And you would need to address that with HR. Do you have any other input that you want to give, Chelsea?
Yeah, I think, you know, that sums it up. It is an interactive process. The other thing I would say is make these requests in writing and get decisions in writing.
Yes.
Because that will, if for any reason that negotiating accommodations goes sideways, you have documentation that specifically addresses that issue. Because, you know, essentially that can turn into a discrimination situation, which is illegal, but those cases are hard to prove without things in writing. So, you know, so if for some reason that doesn't go through, you know, people can file with the Department of Civil Rights or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and they can investigate that situation if those lower level negotiations are unsuccessful. So get things in writing, absolutely.
And that's a great point, Chelsea, because we also know at MRS that oftentimes individuals may be granted with informal accommodations at their workplace, and sometimes people feel that those are helpful. But should one person leave, and we've seen it, one person leaves the workplace, and then all of a sudden someone new is not wanting to honor those things, and you don't have anything documented showing that there was an agreement, that there was a need or anything else. So it is very important that you have things documented in your workplace as a protection.
Absolutely. We've had even cases where somebody's been working like 20, 30 years at some place, and then some, they've had, this same or similar manager, similar styled managers for a while, and somebody else comes in and it all falls apart. So great point, Crystal.
Thank you. Those are all of the questions that we have. Do you all have, I believe you have a final slide. You want to provide some information about your organization?
Yes, so this is our Disability Right Michigan phone numbers, address, and website. I encourage everybody to go to our website and look for the services and resources that will help you with your work, help you with your issues that related to people with disabilities or anything related to social security, community mental health. We have variety of services that will help people with disability. And if we don't have the answer, we always provide you the resources. So please go to our website. We have really very nice one. We create a new one. It's very friendly user, and it's easy to research what you need. And there is many information that will benefit you as a person and as a professional too. I'm not sure if Chelsea or Liz need to add anything about it.
No, you did a great job.
I think that's good.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Well, with that, thank you, Disability Rights Michigan, and specifically Chelsea, Liz, and Elham. We appreciate the information, and thank you for everyone on the call for joining us for the June 1st Friday. For all of our participants, please check your email, stay in contact with MRS personnel or your designated counselor as we provide you information about our July 1st Friday event. Thank you, and everyone have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.